This is TWiT.
Uber. Yeah, it seemed for a while there, every week there was a new Uber story. Just unbelievable story.
Groan after groan.
Groan after groan. Of course, the story this week, Travis Kalanick, a great story in the New York Times about how the board decided to fire after hours of drama.
We are the board. Resistance is futile.
Mr. Kalanick's exit came under pressure after hours of drama involving Uber's investors, according to two people with knowledge of the situation, and their phone calls and hotel calls. And Bill Gurley, who, by the way, he was the venture partner at Benchmark Capital, one of the big investors, has left Uber's board to put another partner on the board. Maybe he's somehow tarnished. But Kalanick was in Chicago. A letter hand-delivered to him says, Mr. Kalanick, time to say good night. Now, he's still going to be chairman of the board. He ain't going really anywhere, but he's not going to have day-to-day operational management. Interestingly, 1,000 Uber employees signed a petition saying we must have him back. He's the only guy who can run Uber. But the investors clearly felt that he was more of a liability than an asset to the company. Your thoughts?
Yeah.
Tom, you start. Go ahead.
Tom, go ahead.
You got the shot glass in hand.
I think this is a very difficult situation for Uber to be in. They have virtually no C-level executives. They have a committee of 14 people running the company. Travis Kalanick was doing the things that he needed to do at this point. Now, you can rightly say too little too late as far as forgiving him personally, but he was finally saying, yes, we're going to get rid of people. We're going to change the company culture. I mean, Arianna Huffington was right there next to him, cheering him on, saying, here's all the things you have to do. And yet that faction of the board said, you know what, we'd just rather have you out of the way so we can pick an adult.
And maybe not that they didn't think the world of Travis or his abilities, but just it was too much of a liability.
And I think what is odd to me is that they didn't have a candidate already lined up after
that
all
is
of this.
Interesting, right? We don't know who's taking his place.
Yeah, and that will be the telling tale here, right? If they were to get a Sheryl Sandberg, I don't think they'll get Sheryl Sandberg to leave Facebook, but if they were to get somebody like that, that makes sense to me. If they get someone unknown or someone who doesn't have a proven track record, then that makes not a lot of sense at all.
Yeah, and in fact, you're right. What it would have made sense is to go out and talk to a Sheryl Sandberg or to. I'm sorry. Let me. I hate autoplay video. Thank you. Or go out and talk to Susan Wojcicki. She's been floated as a name CEO of YouTube. Yep. Maybe a guy. Maybe somebody like Alan Mulally, another person whose name has been floated, former CEO of Ford, who is currently, just kind of hanging out, not doing anything, and a smart guy. And if you think that self-driving vehicles are important to Uber's future, might be a good choice. Wouldn't you go and talk to some of those people and say, look, we're gonna boot Kalanick? Yeah. Maybe
because the reason you get rid of Kalanick, as far as like just brass tacks, if you're the board, I think you get rid of him. Obviously not to please the employees because you've got a bit of an employee revolt going on, but because you want to polish it up for the IPO. You don't want to have this in the way for the IPO.
And regulators.
Yep.
And, you got to consider government issues. I mean, Uber's been fighting the government since day one, local governments.
They obviously considered him a toxic asset, at this point. And so he had done a lot. His obviously super aggressive. He is the one that made Uber and for better and worse. And they have a lot of stuff they need to clean up and clean their house. And they just decided that he wasn't the one to clean it up. Like, he's the one who created the mess. Having him clean it up, probably doesn't work, is essentially what the board decided.
When he owns the majority of voting shares, the only way you convince him of this is to say, we need to bring in a caretaker CEO who's going to guide us through the IPO and make that really profitable for you, Travis.
And
so it's worth it to step aside.
Ideally a woman, right? Because if you bring in a woman, then you can maybe get rid of that, shed that bro image.
And then maybe you even say, Travis, we'll bring you back after the IPO a year or two later.